In the last episode, we installed NetBox and got it up and running. Now it's time to make this useful. Before we can add any devices or start automating, we need to define the structure of the organization. For example, the tenant groups, tenants, our regions, our site groups, our sites, locations, and our contact. Why do we need this? Devices will be in a rack. The rack will sit in a location or a site. The location will be in a region, and the business would have presence in this region. So think of this as laying the foundation for a clean, reliable source of truth. We'll be working with a fictitious company called Velox Bank. Velox Bank is a major subsidiary of the Velox Group. Velox Group has other subsidiaries, but our focus would be on modeling the network for Velox Bank. So let's get started. At this point, we don't have any data within NetBox. There are a couple of ways that we can add data into NetBox. We can go the manual way, where we click, then we go to add, then we populate these fields. That is good, but that can be time-consuming and at times very repetitive if you're adding a lot of information. The other option is that we can do a bulk import. In the bulk import, we can have a CSV formatted syntax that imports a lot of data, or we can even upload the CSV file. The other options, we can clone an existing object, or we can make use of the NetBox REST API. In this series, we'll look at all of the options that we can use to add data into NetBox. So we'll start for now with the manual option. We add our tenant group, which is Velox Group. The Slack is a URL-friendly, unique shorthand. It will be automatically populated, and we add our description. At this point, we won't use tags, we would get to tag. So we create and we add our tenants using the manual method also. We have 3 tenants who are subsidiaries: Velox Bank, part of Velox Group, and this is our financial services subsidiary. We create and add another because we are adding 2 more tenants. The next tenant will have Velox Academy, still part of Velox Group. Velox Academy is our educational services subsidiary. So we update the description and we add our last tenant, which is Velox Consulting. Velox Consulting, still part of Velox Group, and this is a business consulting subsidiary. We hit create. So we have our 3 tenants, all part of our Velox Group tenant group. As you can see, the manual method can be time consuming and it can be repetitive. Next, we'd use the import option and do some bulk import. We look at our regions. There are no regions at this point, so we use the import. To use the CSV formatted syntax option, we'll have to take note of the fields. Think of the fields as the columns. So we have name, Slack, parent, description, tags, comment, and the ID. Name and Slack are required, which means they are compulsory or mandatory, and we have the other fields being optional. This is the same thing you would have seen if you had tried doing this manually. Name, Slack, parent, description, tags, comment. So we add our CSV formatted file to import our regions. We have the name, Slack, description here. Then under the name, we have Africa, the name, Slack, Africa, all in small caps, description, African operations. And we have same for Europe. So we hit submit. The regions can be nested. It depends on your use case. So for example, if you have within Africa, West African operations, East African operations, same for Europe, even within the West Africa, you have other sub-regions. You are able to nest those. So for example, we have the option of adding, let's say, West Africa, and we say this is a parent of Africa. Then we give it a description. And we can even nest further. We can select West Africa as the parent noun, and we have Ghana, and we can give a description. In our case, we won't need that level of granularity because we have clean definitions for our sites which would get there. I'm showing you this so that if you have a use case for this, you know that you are able to nest the regions. Now that we have our regions, we move on to our site groups. Site groups are simply logical groupings of your site. In our use case, we group our sites by their business function. So within a bank, we'd have data centers, would have branch offices, and we have corporate offices like our head office. We are using this approach so that we can apply consistent policies by site type or by function. So let's go back and we use the import because we want to avoid the repetitive task. Name, slag, description, data centers as the name, slag data centers, the description being primary and secondary data centers, and same for branch and corporate offices. We move on to add our site. The sites are the physical locations. In our model, we have 6 sites. We have 2 data centers, one in Accra, one in Dublin. We have our headquarters, which is a corporate site in Accra. Then we have 3 branch offices. So let's go ahead and use the import option. And now we have our site. If we had gone the manual route, it would have taken us quite a while to get all of these data in. But with the import option, once we have our syntax defined, we are good. So we have our sites now. We move on to our locations. This is the logic that we are using for locations. So if we go to our DC in Accra, within the data center itself, we might have a building or buildings. Within a building, we might have a floor. Within the floor, we might have a room or rooms. Within the room, you'd have rows on which you would have, your racks and all of that. How granular you go depends on your use case. I have my locations in an Excel document. So if you look at this, within our Accra DC, we have a building. Within the building, we have a floor. So the floor has the parent as a building. We have a room, which is on the floor. So the room has the floor as the parent. Then we have a row, which has the room as a parent. And we have similar for the other site. Because we already have this in an Excel document, this time we don't use a direct import, but we upload a file. Select our file and hit submit. Then we have all our locations imported. What this means is that if today you have data that you keep in an Excel document, once it is formatted correctly, by that I mean once you have the columns like site, name, and all of that match what is expected, if you decide to import, you would be able to import those data right into NetBox. So now we have our tenant groups, tenants, regions, site groups, site, locations. Last, we look at contact. We have our contact groups. We have 2 contact groups. Our internal contact group, our Velox Bank internal staff, so that's a description. We create and add another external. This is our vendor and third-party contact. Then we can proceed to add our contact. We'd use the import. We have 4 contacts: name, title, groups, phone, email, address, comment. We have Ronald Bonsu, our regional IT manager for Africa and Europe. Groups internal, that is his phone contact, his email address, it.manager@velox.com. Address, Velox Bank, regional office. And comment, Ronald is our technical IT support contact for Africa and Europe regions. And we have the others. So let's submit. There we go. Next, we add our contact roles, then assign our contacts to objects. That way, NetBox users would know who to reach out to if needed. We add our first contact role, manually, and that will be our site manager, who will be our primary site contact. Then we add the rest via bulk import. Name, description, we add our IT contact, emergency contact, and our vendor contact. We have our contact rows created. Next, we will assign our contacts to objects. We'll do this at the site group level. So we go to branch offices, contact. We currently have no contact. So we add a contact. We add an internal contact. We add Isaac. Isaac would be our site manager and our primary contact. We create another internal. We add Beatrice. Beatrice would be emergency contact, and Beatrice is our secondary contact. We have our NetBox organization fully set up from tenancy, regions, site groups, site locations, then to contacts. There's no single way to model your NetBox organization. How you do this entirely depends on your use case. For example, your tenants may be units within the same business, for example, IT, sales, and all of that. Next, we look at adding racks to our Velox Bank network and populating these racks with devices. If you find this series helpful, kindly hit like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.